All right, UFC 310 is now in the books, and we have got to talk about that co-main event. Ian Garry versus Shavkat was a fight that I was very much looking forward to. I mean, how can you not? Last-minute matchup between two undefeated fighters, and this is actually the highest combined win record of two undefeated fighters fighting in the history of the UFC, beating the previous record of Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. And in my previous video, I gave a pretty thorough breakdown of this fight. From the start, I thought this was going to be more competitive than a lot of people thought, but I had a hard time seeing anyone get their hand raised at the end other than Shavkat. I mean, look, we all know the story with Shavkat. The guy is an absolute monster, an absolute beast, has looked unbeatable up to this point. The only question mark about him was how good has the competition that he's fought up to this point really been? Obviously, there was the fight against Jeff Neal where I think he proved a lot of people wrong, if there even were any doubters of him at that point in time. And a lot of people questioned Ian Garry's ability to deal with that grappling. We heard that Shavkat tapped Ian Garry in sparring, but at the end of the day, sparring and fighting, not the same thing. But as we saw last night, Ian Garry didn't just survive. He went in there and put on a hell of a performance. At the very end of it, I mean, I really wasn't sure who won. I actually, at least on my initial watch, I thought Ian Garry just barely edged that one out by a point. But it's one of those where whoever wins this one, it's not a robbery. Both guys fought their hearts out. And if you follow Ian Garry's career, you know that the guy truly does show that he is getting better pretty much every single fight. And I think even in a loss, a fight like this is going to give him a lot of confidence going forward. Also, if you're watching this, subscribe now. And again, you have to give Ian Garry his flowers. The guy stepped up when no one else would against the consensus scariest guy in the division at this moment. And I'm pretty sure most people probably had, if the fight actually happened, Shavkat beating Belal to be the champion. From the opening bell, I thought it was pretty clear Ian Garry was trying to stay long in the strikes. My breakdown video, I mentioned that it might not be the best idea to engage too much in the boxing with Shavkat, who, even though he's a little shorter, has the reach advantage. And Shavkat's game plan also seemed very clear. He wanted to put it on Ian Garry from the start, getting him in the clinch where I guess everyone would have assumed Shavkat has the advantage. He's the stronger fighter of the two, and everyone thought that he was going to be the better grappler as well. And this is how a lot of the fight, especially early on, played out. A lot of clinch work and Ian Garry showing some amazing takedown defense, just refusing to get taken down. And I think at this point, Shavkat got pretty surprised. A couple times, Ian Garry was able to reverse the position on the clinch, pushing Shavkat to the fence. Ian Garry was smart to use his leg reach and throw a lot of kicks from a distance. Shavkat landed some good shots when it comes to the boxing exchanges. The guy knows how to throw his hands, slight reach advantage, was able to come inside, and Shavkat landed some big shots on Ian Garry, but to Ian's credit, he was able to eat them. And Ian Garry had a very kick-heavy approach, trying to eat up that front knee, trying to immobilize Shavkat so he can kind of pick him apart even more effectively on the outside. And Shavkat was eventually able to get Ian Garry to the ground where Ian had a very good guard from the bottom. He threw up the body triangle from the bottom. And Ian Garry, at some points in this fight, was able to prove that he is a sick grappler himself, getting to the back of Shavkat, getting his hooks in, and almost sinking in that choke. I mean, this has got to be the closest Shavkat's ever been to being finished in a fight. I can't even believe Shavkat was able to make his way out of this. And the whole time I was thinking about how insane it would have been if Ian Garry was able to finish the guy who finishes every single other person. Another thing that shocked me about this one was the cardio, really from both guys, from Shavkat, since he's finishing everyone. We've never seen him go this far. And from Ian Garry, the guy is a better athlete than anyone gives him credit for, a better grappler than anyone gives him credit for. And when it comes to mentality, the guy went in there against the scariest guy, and never at any point did he look like or fight like he was intimidated by what was going to be coming his way. And I really hope that we get to see this matchup play out again in the future. For as close as this one was, I think both guys have a lot of room for improvement, especially Ian Garry, since he's only, I think, 27. And I think the most important thing that Ian Garry showed in this fight is that he's not just a flashy striker. The guy is a well-rounded martial artist. I think when Ian Garry was able to take down and control Michael Venom Page, a lot of people just kind of chalked it up to, oh, that's Michael Venom Page. The guy's not much of a striker. He's a Bellator guy. But the guy didn't just take him down. He dominated the exchange and got to his back, almost was able to sink in the choke in the first round. And I think people kind of discredit how great Michael Venom Page's takedown defense and submission defense is. And Ian Garry getting in a similar situation, almost being able to do this, I mean, kind of doing the exact same thing to Shavkat, that's pretty fucking impressive. And here's my thing. A lot of people doubted Ian Garry going into this one, honestly myself included. And we've seen the insane hate brigade that's been coming his way for, I don't know, at this point, over a year, maybe 2 years. At what point do people have to start acknowledging that the guy is a damn good fighter? The original comparisons everyone wanted to make was Ian Garry and Conor. We've never seen Conor do this to someone, especially not someone with the kind of fight style that Shavkat has. Shavkat was training for a 5-round title fight against Belal Muhammad. Ian Garry took this one on short notice. Yes, Ian Garry already had a fight booked against Buckley next week that he was training for, but Buckley is a much different fighter than Shavkat. I do wonder, on both fighters' ends, for Shavkat too, if they got a full training camp to prepare for each other. I gotta wonder how that fight plays out in a rematch, especially now them having 25 minutes of tape to watch about everything both guys did right and wrong. I think Ian Garry is one win away from fighting for a belt, and if Shavkat's able to beat Belal, this is a great rematch to happen for the welterweight title. And I know this video is kind of focusing a lot on Ian Garry, even though the guy at the end of the day did not get the win, no matter how impressive he looked. But there's not really much to say about Shavkat. I think Shavkat proved that he's human. He proved that while he is a great fighter and a very well-rounded fighter, he doesn't exactly look all that dominant against other guys that are also really good and really well-rounded. And at this point, I don't think that the Shavkat we saw against Ian Garry is going to be able to beat, let alone finish, Belal Muhammad, at least the Belal Muhammad we saw against Leon Edwards. So we already know what's next for Shavkat. The guy has officially stamped his ticket as the #1 contender. He's going to be fighting for the belt. But for Ian Garry, I don't even know who's next. The only fight that makes any sense at all, I guess, is Kamaru, which I think in a lot of ways is a bad matchup for Garry. Kamaru is a very wrestling heavy fighter, a really, huge, strong guy for 170, though he is up there in age and he's gotten stopped before by a head kick. And as we know, Ian Garry has some lightning fast kicks himself. Ian Garry and Leon Edwards are both very patient fighters. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a very exciting fight, but at the end of the day, the guy proved a lot of haters wrong, and even in a loss, and guy's got options. Anytime he fights, whether you love him, hate him, or you're somewhere in between, you want to see the guy fight. You're either waiting to meme him to death if he gets knocked out, or you want to watch him prove all the haters wrong and prove he actually is as good as he says he is. But regardless of which camp you're in, you still want to see him fight. At the end of the day, the UFC always needs guys like that. Thanks for watching.